Hi guys, welcome to my channel. This is stellabeautytarot back at you again with another video. I would like to thank each and every one of you for liking, commenting, subscribing, and donating to my channel. I really do appreciate all the love and all the support. And thank you for those of you who've been booking readings with me. It is truly appreciated, okay? So guys, your girl's Patreon channel is up and running. So if you would like to support your girl, you'll be able to find a link in the description box below. I do post 2 exclusive videos per week, so go check it out if you feel called to. So guys, before we dive in, if you've been loving the energy here, I have created a collection of spiritual ebooks and printable workbooks to help you along your journey. From manifestation rituals to love journal prompts, these tools are designed to help you align, heal, and rise. You'll be able to find a link in the description box below or on my Patreon channel under the shop tab. So as you guys could tell by the title of this video is going to be about what are people afraid to admit about you. So pile number 1, you're going to be the tree agate crystal. Pile number 2, you're going to be the red jasper crystal. And pile number 3, the blue turquoise crystal. So again, pile number 1, tree agate crystal. Pile number 2, red jasper crystal. And pile number 3, blue turquoise crystal. So pause this video a few months and meditate on the card or the crystal that you feel most drawn to. You'll be able to find your timestamps in the description box below, and I'll see you guys at your pile. Hi Bawan! Welcome to my channel. This is stellabeautytarot back at you again with another video. So my pal number 1, you picked the tree agate crystal, and this is going to be your reading, okay? So if you are a returning subscriber, welcome back. I'm so happy to have you back. And if you are a newbie, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. So the way that I like to do this is like to smudge the cards first before we get started, so we don't pick up the energy of previous file or previous readings, okay? So my pal number 1, what are people afraid to admit about you? What are people afraid to admit about you? What do we have? Ooh, we have the Queen of Pentacles. Okay, people are afraid to admit that they admire your independence, that they admire the fact that you're self-sufficient. Okay, you don't really need anybody. You're composed. You're self-fulfilling. I'm like self-fulfilling, self-sufficient with the Queen of Pentacles. And that could trigger some people's insecurities where they feel like they need outside validation. They know that you don't need that, okay? What are people afraid to admit about you? What are people afraid to admit? We have the 2 wands. They are afraid to admit that you're always 10 steps ahead of them, that you have long-term vision. You are a master builder here. You could be a master number 22 with the 2 of wands, okay? You're like far-sighted. Ooh, we have the 8 of pentacles that flew out the deck. They're afraid to admit that they admire your work ethics here. Someone specifically might be afraid to admit that you have better work ethics than they do. They underestimated your value, your abilities to get things done without being told. Like, you have this quiet power about you with the Queen of Pentacles. Like, you're not flashy, okay? You're not somebody who's boastful, somebody who runs their mouth to let people know that, oh, look at me, I could do this, I could do that. You're not cocky, you're not arrogant, you're confident in who you are, okay? And your confidence comes from your abilities to get things done with the Eight of Pentacles. And people are afraid to admit that about you, that they know like your confidence stems from within, from your abilities to get things done. You're not the type of person that's going to run your mouth. Like, you don't run your mouth just to run your mouth. What are people afraid to admit about you? We have the Lovers. Ooh, you have a really good balance of feminine and masculine energy. But people are afraid to admit that you are the ideal lover, you are the best choice. Maybe somebody may have tried to get something that was rightfully yours, but they had to cheat or deceive to get it. And somebody is finally admitting that, like, that you were the better choice, you were the better option, whether it's like a job or a lover or some sort of business partnership, like you were the better option, but somebody manipulated their way to get it. What are people afraid to admit about you? What are people afraid to admit about you? Ooh, we have the Seven of Swords. People are afraid to admit that you're 10 step ahead of them. Like, you see with the Two of Wands and the Seven of Swords, like, you're strategic, you're very smart, well versed, okay? You see right through their gimmicks. You see right through their BS, and they're afraid to admit that about you. Like, you're too sharp, mentally sharp. It's kind of hard to, you know, like, deceive you or trick you. Somebody may have tried to do that, but you're too sovereign here. You're too wise for this person. They don't really like that. They like people that they can manipulate, but you are not easily swayed or manipulated. What are people afraid to admit about you? Ooh, we have the Empress. So we have Libra, Taurus energy. Some of you could be Taurus, Gemini, Cuspers. Don't have to be. But with the Empress energy, people are afraid to admit that you are Empress status, that you are beautiful within and out. Okay? That you are creative, you are abundant, you have an exquisite beauty. Somebody is afraid to admit that they're jealous of your looks. You have a secret hater amongst your midst. I'm like, amongst your midst. In your midst, with the Empress energy, with the Seven of Swords, someone around you is like threatened by your beauty, your elegance, your grace. They are threatened by that, and they're intimidated by that, but they're afraid to admit that that's the reason why they dislike you. Because somebody does not really like you, but they're close to you to keep an eye on you, but they don't want to admit to themselves that's because you're the Empress. This person's jealous of your essence. Okay, what are people afraid to admit about you? Ooh, we have the Star, Aquarius energy. People are afraid to admit that you are original, that you are the blueprint, you are authentic, okay? You're the real deal. Somebody does not want to admit that about you. They're afraid, because then it's going to shed light on some sort of insecurities that this person has. They don't want to admit that they're insecure in your presence. What are people afraid of to admit about you? We have the Three of Cups. There's like this celebratory energy. I feel like you're very popular, especially with the Star here. Some of you are like popular loners, okay? Like, you hang around by yourself, but a lot of people know you or know of you, okay? And this is like your power, okay? People know you, like, know of you, but they don't really know you like that. Like, your personal life, they don't really know that much, but you're well known, okay, with the Three of Cups, and you're well liked as well. Somebody's afraid to admit like your power that you possess. What are people afraid to admit about you? We have the Ace of Cups. Like, you're genuine, you're pure hearted, okay? You don't have any malice in your heart, and you have a healthy amount of self-love. What are people afraid to admit about you? Ooh, Five of Cups. Somebody's afraid to admit that they're heartbroken over you, that they're disappointed at how, like, the relationship turned out. Like, maybe somebody thought that, ooh, I mean, like, somebody thought they meant more to you than they actually did. Somebody is afraid to say that they wanted to have a better, closer relationship with you, but they never did. Like, this is somebody who may have taken you for granted. Maybe they thought that you were always going to be around, that you're seeking their validation, that you actually needed their validation. And somebody's realizing, like, nah, you never really did. Like, you didn't really care. Like, if this person would stay or go, like, you're still going to continue to do your thing. What are people afraid to admit about you? We have the Fool card. So with the Fool card, what I'm getting here is people are afraid to admit that you're somebody who walks to the beat of your own drums. You are definitely a leader and not a follower. And they're jealous of your freedom, okay? Your self-composed energy. So what are people afraid to admit about you? What are people afraid to admit about you? Ooh, Four of Cups, that they missed out on an opportunity to get to know you on a deeper level. Because I feel like you don't really trust these people anymore. With the Seven of Swords, like you saw right through them, like their games, like their manipulation. And now it's kind of hard for them to circle back. That's why they feel like with the Four of Cups, they're afraid to admit that they missed out on an opportunity with you, that they messed up a relationship with you, and they feel some type of way about it. What are people afraid to admit about you? What do we have here? Ooh, the Wheel of Fortune. Nah. They're afraid to admit that they know you're chosen. They feel like you're lucky, but they know that you're blessed. That's what it is with the Wheel of Fortune. The wheel always turns in your favor. They know that you're highly favored and protected. Whether you are a Sagittarius or not, this is what people are afraid to admit about you. They know that there is some sort of favor over your life. There's some sort of blessing over your life because these people have been like, watching you from afar, keeping tabs on you. And you may have like just, did your own thing with the Queen of Pentacles because the Queen of Pentacles, she's independent. She's self-sufficient. She doesn't need external validation in order to feel good about herself. She does her own thing. And some people, they're afraid to admit that they were like not like the same level as you, and they saw like your power even before you did. Like maybe you were still at the beginning phase of your journey, and these people saw your power and they were threatened by it. They were trying to suppress it, but with the Seven of Swords, you saw right through them. So you may have cut them off before they had a chance to, muddy your water, and you moved away. And that's why they're in the Five of Cups and the Four of Cups, because they know they missed out on a chance of like having a really genuine connection with you. And that's why they know with the Wheel of Fortune that you're blessed beyond measures. Okay, so what are people afraid to admit about you? We have the Two of Cups. I'm telling you, there was like a genuine connection, like you were a genuine person, and they're afraid to admit that they were shitty to you. They were shitty towards you. That they're the, like, when you say, like, when you talk about people that are snake or deceptive or fake friends, frenemies, they know that they're the frenemy. Like, that's like, they cannot deny that. And that's what they're afraid to admit about you. Like, you were genuine, you were true. Like, your feelings, your intentions were genuine. You never had any malice in your heart. We have the Ace of Cups. They're realizing this and they are afraid to admit that, because now it's like, okay, well, if you're the good person, who's the bad guy? They like, they have to admit that it's them. They have to admit that they were the bad one in the story. But it's kind of hard pill to swallow. You see, they don't even want me to speak. What are people afraid to admit about you? Wow, that they fumbled you. I'm telling you, they're heartbroken. You see, this Leo season and Mercury retrograde is about to whip people's butt. The people that did some crazy things, things that they were sneaky, deceptive, they did some stuff that they thought they're going to get away with, something is coming to light. Okay? We're in Leo season, and the sun, like Leo's ruled by the sun, you cannot hide anything under the sun, right? It's only under the moon you could do that. People are being exposed for the fake fraudsters that they are. So what are people afraid to admit about you? We have the Strength card, a Leo energy. And if you are a Leo and it's your birthday today, happy birthday, okay? With the Leo energy, they're afraid to admit that you're like a sovereign being, that you're influential. Like, they know that you had all the power all along, but you never misused it. And this is what makes you so powerful, because your power is authentic. It's not like ego based. And they're afraid to admit that about you, because it's going to show, like, it's going to reveal the type of person they actually were. Like, if it comes out to the public, they're scared of like the repercussion or the public humiliation that they're going to experience. We have the Death card. They're afraid to admit how like powerful, magnetic you are, and how resilient you are, because whatever they did, or they try to do, because I feel like it's like, you know what, like the verse that says no weapon formed against you shall prosper. That's what I'm getting here. They were forming weapons against you, but it didn't prosper. That's why they're in the Five of Cups. It's like, if the weapon did prosper, do you think they would be in the Five of Cups? They would be rejoicing right now. They would be so happy. But because it didn't prosper, that's why they're in sorrow, because like their mask fell off. What are people afraid to admit about you? What are people afraid to admit about you? They know you're chosen. The Wheel of Fortune is here twice for you, my powerful one. They know. They're afraid to admit that. Because then it's going to show that they're not protected. They're not favored. They know karma's coming. Okay? So, what are people afraid to admit? Wow, we have the Sun card, Leo energy twice. We have Sagittarius twice, Leo twice. We have Scorpio. So, some of you could be Scorpio, Sagittarius cuspers, or Scorpio, Libra cuspers. Okay, powerful energy, beautiful energy. Yeah, like they're afraid to admit that you're somebody who's destined for success, somebody who shines brightly without having to force it. Okay, you're not a performer, you're authentic. What are people afraid to admit about you? Wow, we have the Tower. They underestimated you. They're afraid to admit that they underestimated your strength, your power. I heard your legacy. What are people afraid to admit about you? Ooh, Five of Pentacles. They feel left out in the cold. They're also afraid to admit that they initially left you out in the cold. Yeah, they initially did that, or they tried to do that and they failed miserably, and now they're in their feelings about that. What are people afraid to admit about you? Just one card, please, Spirit. Ooh, we have the Chariot, Cancer energy, structured and disciplined, strong-willed and determined here. They're afraid to admit that about you, that you're a sovereign being. That's for sure. They know that you're not somebody who's easily swayed or manipulated. You know where you're going, you know where you're headed in life. You're so focused and you're determined, and they know that this is something that they cannot deny about you. You're extremely committed to your craft. You're a harder working individual. We also have the Eight of Pentacles plus the Queen of Pentacles. Like, they can't deny that, but they don't want to say it out loud. They don't want to admit it to themselves, but they're going to have to. What are people afraid to admit about you? We have the Seven of Cups. They're afraid to admit that they didn't really knew you like that. They thought they did with the Seven of Cups, but now there's many versions of you that they have experienced, and they don't know which one is real. And it's not like you're being fake or deceptive. It's more about like there's many layers to you, especially with the Tower here. They didn't know you. They underestimated you, and that's what's like triggering them even more. What are people afraid to admit about you? We have the Three of Pentacles. Yeah, you're a great team player with the Three of Pentacles. You're dependable, you're reliable, and your reputation precedes you. You really are who you say you are. It's not a gimmick. What are people afraid to admit about you? Oh, we have the Sun card again. Yes, you are the truth. You're authentic. The sun, like I said, shines on everything. You cannot hide under the sun, only under the moon. The sun, you cannot. It's everything is being revealed, exposed. Your power, your stamina, your reputation, your influence is being exposed. They're afraid to admit that you're more influential, you're more powerful than they gave you credit for. And they're afraid of that power. They were always insecure, like in your presence. They're afraid to admit that about you. Okay? So that's all I have for you, my pal number one. I hope this reading resonated. If it did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I hope to see you in my next video, pal number one. Bye. Hi, Pal 2. Welcome to my channel. This is Stellabeautytarot Tarot back at you again with another video. So, my pal number 2, you picked the red jasper crystal. And this is going to be your reading, okay? So if you are a returning subscriber, welcome back. I'm so happy to have you back. And if you are a newbie, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. So the way that I like to do this is like to smudge the cards first before we get started, so we don't pick up the energy of previous pile or previous readings, okay? So my pile number 2. What are people afraid to admit about you? What are people afraid to admit about you? Ooh, we have the Queen of Swords. They're afraid to admit that you are, ooh, I heard 10 times smarter than them. Somebody tried to outsmart you and they're realizing that you were always 10 step ahead of them. Like when somebody was trying to do something to you, you just like you were moving accordingly. And they're realizing that you're somebody who is very sharp and extremely discerning. You saw right through somebody or a group of people and they're afraid to admit that about you, that they underestimated your intelligence, they downplayed your intelligence. What are people afraid to admit about you? What do we have? Ooh, we have the strength card, Leo energy. Okay, you're extremely influential here. And if you are a Leo and it's your birthday today, happy birthday. Okay, yes, you're super strong here. Your inner strength is impeccable. Okay, undeniable. And that's something that they are afraid to admit about you. You stand on your own with the strength card. You don't need external validation. You don't need outside support. You don't need people to tell you that you're doing a great job. Okay. You are extremely independent. And your independence is something that's triggering these people. Whatever people are afraid to admit about you, we have the Queen of Wands. Okay. Come through. Fire. They're afraid. Okay, they're afraid to admit how confident, how beautiful, how exquisite you look, but also how powerful you are. Your power is undeniable. You don't have to perform. This power is innate. It's not something that could be stolen from you. It wasn't given to you. It was something that you already embody from the jump. And they're afraid to admit that about you. Or they don't, like, I feel like they don't even want to see it because it's triggering, especially if you are a woman here. What are people afraid to admit about you? We have the Four of Swords. They're afraid to admit that their shenanigans, their things against you, what they do towards you does not even, you don't even flinch, you don't even care. Like they're afraid to admit that they feel insignificant in your presence. You make them feel insignificant, but it's like you're not doing anything. They're the one who's projecting onto you. They want to have some sort of like control over your emotions, but you don't really care. You really don't care. The Queen of Swords, she does not operate out of emotions. She operates out of logic. So if you do something to trigger her emotions, she's not even going to flinch. She's not even going to care. She's going to look at you like you're a fool because she doesn't care. She really doesn't. Like, she probably gonna laugh in your face. What are people afraid to admit about you? We have the King of Wands. No, sorry, the Knight of Wands. Okay, with the Knight of Wands, people are afraid to admit that you are a powerful individual. That not only are you powerful with the Knight of Wands, you have a lot of like boldness, courage. This is something that they feel they lack and you possess, and you're able to tap into that energy like swiftly. Okay, your boldness is something that triggers them. Like certain things that you do so without any hesitation. Like when you do it with conviction. And that is something that they're afraid to admit about you. Like your conviction, your boldness is something that irritates them. And it also threatens them because they feel like they need outside approval. They need people to tell them what to do in order to feel good. What are people afraid to admit about you? Ooh, we have the Seven of Pentacles. Okay, you're a patient individual with the Seven of Pentacles. You're very like calm, cool, and collected under pressure, but you're also somebody who is worth the investment. You were always worth the investment. They're afraid to admit that about you. Like they mishandled your power, your greatness. This could be like workplace situation or like colleagues that try to like mess up your bag, but they didn't know that you were already like 10 step ahead of them. Okay, so what are people afraid to admit about you? Like I feel like you outmaneuver somebody who was trying to set up a trap for you. What are people afraid to admit about you? Ooh, we have the Five of Pentacles. Somebody thought that they were going to leave you out in the cold, like by like excluding you from an event, excluding you from some sort of conversation, some sort of deal, that by doing so it was going to crumble your foundation. But people are afraid to admit that you're somebody who's been through the dark night of the soul on multiple occasions. Like you fell on the ground multiple occasions and you got right back up. Like people are afraid to admit like that you're somebody who has inner strength and stamina. You're able to withhold and withstand the winter without support. Okay, now they feel left out in the cold when they actually did that to you initially, but now you bounce back from it, and they're afraid to admit that they admire your strength, your inner strength. Okay, what are people afraid to admit about you? Wow, we have the Two of Cups. Like the Two of Cups is like genuine energy. This is balance, like pure emotions. They're afraid to admit that about you. Like somebody is realizing that they were the snake in the story, just like file number one, like an energy of like somebody who may have betrayed you, or like people that may have betrayed you and they never like wanted to admit like your power was threatened to them. What are people afraid to admit about you? We have the Wheel of Fortune. Yeah, they're afraid to admit that you are favored, you're highly favored, you're protected by the gods, you always land on your feet. Whatever is sent out to destroy you, you use it as a footstool. That's what I'm getting here, and people are afraid to admit that about you. Like your luck is always on your side and they're envious of that or jealous of that. What are people afraid to admit about you? Just one card, please, Spirit. What do we have here? Ooh, Four of Wands. Stable energy, joyful energy. This is celebration. This stability. People are afraid to admit that you bring warmth and stability everywhere you go. You are a pillar. Somebody acted like you weren't needed, that they could just discard you without any consequences. Somebody's afraid to admit that there was a consequence for doing that to you. With the Five of Pentacles, they're left out in the cold now. Initially, that's what they did to you, but they're realizing that you were always 10 steps ahead of them with the Queen of Swords. You already saw it coming, so you prepared yourself, you braced yourself. So when that impact came, it wasn't as powerful as they thought it would be, because you were already mentally prepared and you were already 10 steps ahead of them. So it's like when it came, it didn't come as a surprise, because you were already mentally, like I said, mentally prepared. It was more of a shock for them, the way that you handle the situation. They don't want to admit, they're afraid to admit that you were the pillar in their life. They were never like they're realizing how insignificant they were. They don't want to admit that like you didn't really need them like that. You're already comfortable and stable within yourself. It's like somebody doesn't want to admit that you were doing them a favor. That's what it is. You were doing them a favor. It wasn't the other way around. What are people afraid to admit about you? It's like when they leave your life, you're good. You're still standing still, like because you are the anchor. You don't need anchoring. You do the anchoring. So it's like when you left, you were still good because you kept your energy. They didn't steal anything from you. You were anchoring the energy when you were there. But the moment that you left the environment, whether it's friendship, love, relationship, whatever it is, it crumbled. And they're afraid to admit that about you with the Four of Wands. And they're afraid to admit that they miss you. They mishandled you. Okay? So what are people afraid to admit about you? Just one card, please, Spirit. Ooh, we have the Queen of Swords again. I'm telling you. You're smarter. You're always 10 steps ahead. They didn't know. Now they know. What are people afraid to admit about you? We have the Magician. Ooh, they're afraid to admit that you're a master manifestor. You're very skilled at what you do. They underestimated your abilities. Okay? And this is something that they're going to have to live with. Like I said, you outsmarted somebody and they don't like that, or a group of people. What are people afraid to admit about you? What are they afraid to admit about you? That's just one card, please. What are they afraid to admit about you? Just one, please, Spirit. We have the Emperor. Spouse. They don't want to admit that you are a natural born leader. You're a self-starter. You're an initiator. You're a spouse. They better put some respect on your name. You could be an Aries here. Don't have to be. You're a sovereign being, and that's something that they are afraid to admit because like I said, you never needed them. It was the other way around. You did them a favor by being around. Whatever it is, especially if it's like workplace scenario, okay? Like this job may have like, mishandled your power, your contribution. They may have thought that they didn't need you, like you were dispensable. It's like, like some sort of utensil that they could just throw away and get a new one. They realized that they did something too quickly. They didn't think this through, and now they're realizing the errors of their ways, but it's already too late. They don't want to admit that they made a mistake when it came to you. What are people afraid to admit about you? They were wrong. That's what I'm getting. They're afraid to admit that they were wrong about you. They had a misconception of you. Your power was quiet with the Queen of Swords. You were observing them less than you were talking. It's not the Page of Swords here running their mouth. This is the Queen of Swords. She's highly intelligent. You cannot come play with the Queen of Swords intelligence. Okay? She will outmaneuver you in a way that's gonna like make you second guess your own intelligence. Oh my gosh. What are people afraid to admit about you? We have the Ten of Wands. Ooh, they were burdened by you. They were burdened by your power. They were burdened by your ability to get things done on your own. They're afraid to admit that about you. Like your power, your essence, your energy intimidated them more than they let on. What are people afraid to admit about you? There's just one card, please, Spirit. What are people afraid? Ooh, we have the Six of Pentacles. Yeah, they're afraid to admit that they took more from you than they gave. Whatever relationship it was, they took on more than they gave you. And that's heavy. It's weighing heavy on them. You're far more generous and giving than they were. Basically, like I said, you were doing them a favor. Okay? What are people afraid to admit about you? Four of Pentacles. Yeah, you're a grounded individual. Yeah, they're afraid to admit that they were stingy. Okay, like they were stealing from you basically energetically. What are people afraid to admit about you? The scale is about to balance. There was an injustice here, and it's gonna be righted. Like Spirit is not gonna let that go. They're not gonna get away with it. So what are people afraid to admit? We have the Lovers. Yeah, you were the better choice, the better option. They chose someone else or something else over you that was easier to control. What are people afraid to admit about you? What are people afraid to admit about you? We have the Devil. Ooh, they're obsessed. They're afraid to they're afraid to admit that this connection, whatever it was, so whether it's friendship, relationship, business partnership, work, colleague, they're afraid to admit that they were the toxic one in the relationship or in the partnership, that they were taking on more than they were giving, like they were toxic, and they're obsessed with you. They're obsessed with your energy. They can't get over you. They're always talking about you. They're always in your essence. These are people that are like so obsessed that it's unhealthy. Okay. What are people afraid to admit about you? Yeah, the Ten of Wands. I'm telling you, your power, your strength, your essence was a burden to them. They don't want to admit that it was irritating them. Your light was irritating them. That's why they treated you the way that they did. They were trying to break you down, but they couldn't. You're too powerful for them. They're afraid to admit that. That's the real reason why they were angry with you or treated you the way that they did. What are people afraid to admit about you? They wanted to break your spirit, but they couldn't. And that's what irritated them the most, because like the more they try to break your spirit, the stronger you became. Like, oh my God, these people. What are people afraid to admit about you? We have the Temperance card. We have all the fire signs here. Like, really, do you really want to mess with fire? Do you really want to put your finger in a flame? Do you really want to do that? Like, think about it. Do you really want to get burned? Like, this is what I'm getting here. Like, these people really wanted to try you. They really wanted to break that fire, extinguish your fire. But the more they try to extinguish your fire, the more the flame became brighter and stronger. And, like like a bush that's on fire. Like it kept on getting bigger. They were putting, like, every time they were trying to extinguish your fire, what they were doing is they were putting more fuel. The fire was getting bigger, and they got more they got more upset with the 10 of Wands twice. They couldn't contain you. They're afraid to admit that that's what they were trying to do to you. With the Temperance card, you're too sovereign here. You're an alchemist. You turn that negative energy that they try to put on you. You transmute that energy. They're afraid to admit that that's what they were doing. What are people afraid to admit about you? Just one card, please, Spirit. Yes, that you're resilient. I'm telling you, I can't make it up, guys. They know that you were powerful. They were resilient. They were trying to break you, but they couldn't. What are people afraid to admit about you? Yeah, we have the 2 of Wands. You see a lot of fire energy. You're driven, okay? You are a self-starter, an initiator, and you don't give up easily with the 9 of Wands. What are people afraid to admit about you? 4 of Swords, that you were unbothered. Like, what they were doing to you was not, like, you've been through worse. That's what I'm getting here. Whoever this is, like this group of people, this group of friends, whoever it is, okay, they're realizing that you were so unbothered by their shenanigans and their little schemes to try to get you off of your path. You kept on pushing. Okay, what are people afraid to admit about you? Just one card. What are people afraid to admit about you? Just one card, please, Spirit. Ooh, we have the Moon card. Yeah, they're afraid to admit that there's more to you than meets the eyes. Like, you saw more than you let on. Like you spoke about. Like, you kept your eyes open. I heard you kept your eyes open and your mouth shut. They're afraid to admit that about you. Like, you were seeing them clearly with the Queen of Swords. She's here twice. You can't fool the Queen of Swords. It's hard to do that. Unless she allows you. That's the only way. She's too smart. Okay, she's too discerning. You can't. She doesn't operate through emotions. She's logical. She sees patterns. She's real with herself. She's not delusional. So you can't trick her. Okay? So that's all I have for you, my pal number 2. I hope this reading resonated. If it did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I hope to see you in my next video, pal number 2. Bye. Hi, pal 3. Welcome to my channel. This is stellabeautytarot back at you again with another video. So, my pal number 3, you picked the blue turquoise crystal, and this is going to be your reading, okay? So if you are a returning subscriber, welcome back. I'm so happy to have you back. And if you are a newbie, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. So the way that I like to do this is like to smudge the cards first before we get started, so we don't pick up the energy of previous pal or previous readings, okay? So my pal number 3. What are people afraid to admit about you? What are people afraid to admit about you? What do we have here? We have the 9 of Cups. Ooh. People are afraid to admit that they're envious of you, envious of what you have, your desires. They envy the fact that you're self-sufficient, emotionally sovereign, okay? Like, you don't need outside validation. You're emotionally content, emotionally fulfilled. You have something that a lot of people want, whether it's your physical appearance, your lifestyle, your financial situation, like whatever it is that you have that is extremely desirable, coveted. This is what people are afraid to admit about you. They want what you have, okay? You've always been the blueprint, okay? You've always been that person that people want to copy, want to be like, okay? What are people afraid to admit about you? What are people afraid to admit about you? Ooh, we have the Knight of Swords. People are afraid to admit that you are mentally sharp, mentally agile, okay, quick on your feet. People are afraid to admit that. Ooh, we have the 8 of Cups. They're afraid to admit that your emotional sovereignty and your emotional unbotheredness bothers them. The fact that you're emotionally detached bothers more people than they let on. People don't want to admit that your ability to move on from a situation with swiftness like cause them like some sort of anguish here with the Eight of Cups. Like people don't want to admit that they need your emotional validation. They need to feel like connected to you in order to feel successful. Like you are the blueprint, you are the person they want to be, like you are the person that they want to like be connected to, be associated with. But because you are someone who's very picky with the energy that you allow around you, people are starting to like they don't want to admit that it bothers them more than they let on. Okay, you're disinterested, your emotional detachment bothers people more than they want to admit. What are people are afraid to admit about you? We have the Two of Wands. The Two of Wands came out for all three piles. So this tells me collectively that people are afraid to admit that you are a visionary. A visionary. You're innovative. You think 10 step ahead. And they admire that about you, but they don't want to admit it. They admire your drive, your determination, your mindset, your ability to think on your feet. So what are people afraid to admit about you? We have the Page of Pentacles. They're afraid to admit that they're studying you. I'm telling you, people are taking notes. You are the blueprint. They're afraid to admit that they are an apprentice. They are your apprentice, like your undercover apprentice. Like you don't even know these people are taking notes. They're watching you, especially when you find people asking you about your routine. That's like really creepy. When they ask you about like your skincare routine and stuff like that. And it's like, why would you want to know someone's skincare routine? Everybody's skincare routine is different because everybody has a different skin type. So, like, what works for someone does not necessarily mean is going to work for you. That's not like, this is like somebody who's trying to embody your energy. So, let's say, for instance, you're oily skin type and someone else's combination. You guys are not going to use the same type of skincare product to target your concern. Your skin concern is going to be different because you have different skin types. So, you're not going to want to use a product that is meant for oily skin for someone who is trying to combat acne. Like you're not going to do that. Like you're going to create more problems for yourself. And this is what I'm getting here. Like somebody's trying to um like reverse engineer what you do in order to find your sauce, in order to find your secret, but they don't want to admit that they are like watching you like a hawk and obsessed with you. What are people afraid to admit about you? We have the Chariot, Cancer energy. Yeah, they're afraid to admit that they love your drive, they love your determination, they love how committed you are to your craft, your goals. Okay, you don't really care what people got to say about you. You're just so focused on your end game, your end goal. Okay, this is what I'm getting here with the Chariot. What people are afraid to admit about you? We have the Hangman. They're afraid to admit that they're stuck on you. They're obsessed with you. Even though the devil's not here, I'm getting an obsessive energy because of the Nine of Cups. Like your desirability is extremely high. Even if it's like, same sex and opposite sex is the same thing. People desire to be with you or people desire to be you. They don't want to admit that. Like you are their wish fulfillment for like say if you're a woman here and you are heterosexual is the same thing. Like other men, they desire but they don't want to admit it. Some of them, they try to even like trying to like make you feel bad about like being confident in yourself, confident in who you are, trying to make you feel bad about your body because you're very attractive. You maybe you're voluptuous here, you have like curves, you're curvaceous, and then they're trying to shame you for being curvaceous, or they're trying to shame you because they're attracted to you and you're not really vibing like that with them. Okay, people are afraid to admit that they are like insecure around you and they're threatened by your confidence. What are people afraid to admit about you? We have the Sun card. I can't make it up, guys. I'm telling you, we have a Leo energy. And if you are a Leo and it's your birthday today, happy birthday, okay? With the Sun card, like your confidence. They're afraid to admit that your confidence irritates them. You could be a Leo, Cancer, cusper, don't have to be, but they don't like how driven, they don't like how good you look. You're looking fly. Okay, looking, you know, your body is sitting right, you know, everything is sitting right at the right places. If you're a man here, you know, you have six packs, you look like, you know, I'm gonna make you look like a snack. Full course meal, okay? Like what? Appetizer and the drink. This is what I'm getting here. They're afraid to admit that your confidence is something that triggers them because it makes them feel insecure about themselves. So, but it's like you're not trying to like boast or trying to intimidate them or any shape or way. Just your presence is like felt when you walk into the room and it bothers them. What are people afraid to admit about you? And I feel like that's why you're not invited. You don't get invited to places, my pal number three. People don't like to invite you because you take all the attention with the sun card. You're a wish fulfillment. So like if you have a group of boys that you hang around with and you wonder why they never include you when they go out for drinks or they never include you when they go out to parties, because you get all the women. They don't like it. You don't have to say anything. Like you just look so fly. Like, you know, that skin is smooth, that beard is, you know, healthy, you know, it's very masculine here, okay? And then you attract all the feminine women and they don't like it. They only get the dusty ones, okay? They only get the pick-me-shas and they get mad. You get the women that are, you know, high vibing like you. And the thing is, when they don't invite you, it's not like they're going to get the high vibing women. They're still going to get the pick-me-shots, but they just don't want you to have the high vibing women. That's what it is. Okay. What are people afraid to admit about you? What are people afraid to admit about you? Ooh, we have the Queen of Pentacles, independent, self-sufficient. Yeah, your independence and your self-sufficiency is something that irritates them. They don't like that. Like you could do well by yourself. Like you don't really need a group of people like that. What are people afraid to admit about you? We have the Temperance card, Sagittarius energy. Yeah, they're afraid to admit that you're an alchemist. Whatever is being thrown at you, you know how to alchemize that energy. You know how to transmute it. We have the Hermit, Virgo energy. You're wise beyond your years, my pal, number three. And that's what they're afraid to admit about you. There's certain like steps or there's certain like milestones that you have accomplished that makes people that are older than you irritated because they feel like, okay, well, I was never able to accomplish this milestone when I was your age. How come you were able to do it? Like they feel like some type of way, but they don't understand that everybody goes at their own pace. Everybody has their own path. Everybody has their own like spiritual lessons that they have to learn in order to unlock their blessings. If they have not learned the lesson, Saturn is not going to bless them. That's the thing they don't understand. That's what people need to understand. Like read your birth chart, know your birth charts, and then that's how you're going to know how to navigate the world, because this is like your map that the universe gave you. So these people, they don't understand, like if you don't learn the lessons, Saturn is not going to bless you. He's not. Saturn daddy's not gonna Big daddy's not gonna bless you because you didn't learn the lesson. And that's what I'm getting here. And that's what they're afraid to admit about you, is that you are wiser than they were at your age, and it irritates them. Some of you is like your family members, they're angry with you for being so smart, for being so wise and be independent. They don't like that. You see how I'm doing my fingers, like I'm crunching my hands. This is how somebody feels. They're afraid to admit that about you, that you have surpassed them, surpassed their expectations of you. So what are people? Yeah, you see, we have the Three of Wands. You're forward thinking, like you're innovative, okay? And they're afraid to admit that about you. They don't like that. It pisses them off so much. They're like saying that it's unfair, but like I said, Saturn will not reward you if you don't pass the lessons. Saturn doesn't care how many times you have to repeat the lesson. If you don't pass it, you're not getting it. You're not getting the A plus that you think you deserve. You haven't earned it. Saturn is not going to give it to you. Point blank. There's no, no. Saturn does not play fair. Does not play favorite. He does not. It's either you pass the test or you fail. That's it. And those people, they don't understand that you've been past the test a long time ago. And this is the reason why you're getting blessed. And they're mad at you for that. What are people afraid to admit about you? What are people afraid to? Ooh, haters are gonna come for me in the comments. They're gonna come for me. Ooh, they're that your wish fulfillment. They feel like everything is too easy for you, but it's not true. Like I said, you passed the test. That's why you're getting blessed, and they don't get it. That's why they're not getting their blessings. What are people afraid to admit about you? We have the Five of Swords. Ooh, I'm telling you, you irritate them. You see now they're coming through. They want to show me, like, yeah, we're mad. Okay, well, that's your problem, not my problem. Like, what? You can be mad all you want. I don't care. We have the Ace of Cups. Yeah, like whoever those karmics are, they're mad. They're afraid to admit that your sovereignty, your emotional sovereignty, the fact that you always get your wish fulfillment with the Nine of Cups being here twice, Ace of Cups, it irritates them. They're afraid to admit that they admire the way that you are composed, self-composed, especially with the Temperance card and the Hermit card. They're afraid to admit that, in the fact that with the Sun card, you're confident in who you are, your abilities, okay? You walk with your head held high. You know your value. So it's not like you're not easily swayed or manipulated, and they are afraid to admit that about you, that they admire that, but at the same time they hate it. With the Five of Swords, it irritates them. Okay, we have the Moon card. Like, they're also afraid to admit that you're highly spiritual, and this is something that frightens them, because you could see things about them that they would rather not. Okay, they would not rather not share with the world, but you could see it. What are people afraid to admit about you? We have Justice. Ooh, Libra and energy. You have a high integrity. They know that. That's something that they, even if they want to deny, they know this is something that you possess. Like, you're somebody who has high integrity, moral compass. Okay, your moral compass is intact. Okay, you have a code of ethics. Like, when you do things in the proper way, even if no one is watching you, with the Justice card. And they're afraid to admit that about you, but they're also afraid to admit that whenever they do something to you, or they send negative energy towards you, they get karmic retribution right away. Like, they get karma right away. What are people afraid to admit about you? Just one card, please, Spirit. What do we have here? Ooh, we have the Fool card. They're afraid to admit that you are divinely guided. They know you are, because they don't understand your path, but for some reason you always seem to land on your feet. And they know that it's because you're divinely guided, but they don't want to admit that. They know that you have some sort of spiritual protection or higher power that's, like, guiding you. What are people afraid to? I can't make it up. High Priestess. I'm telling you, they know that you're spiritual. You could be another tarot reader here. This could also be like other tarot readers that are trying to maybe like send you negative energy, trying to mess up your business. Maybe they're intimidated by like how you get your spiritual downloads, which is like silly. Like, why are you intimidated by somebody else's spiritual gifts? This is not something that you could duplicate. It's not something that you learn. Spiritual gifts is like inherited by your ancestors. So it's like you could only cultivate what you already have, but you cannot duplicate it. Like, I hope that makes sense, guys. Like, you can't do that. Like, those karmics, they're delusional. Like, they don't understand, and that's why they're not blessed. Like, spirit knows what they're doing. Okay, that's why it's like a few people within a family unit that have the gifts. Not everybody has, because they know that your ancestors, like, they know who to choose from. Okay, they're not stupid. They're not gonna choose the person that they know is gonna be reckless with the gift, because if you're reckless with your gift, it gets stripped away. It gets taken away from you. Like, people don't understand that. Like, you can't misuse your gift and you think that you're gonna keep it. No, there is spiritual consequences. You're not above spiritual law just because you have spiritual gifts. This is why your ancestors, they're very picky with who they choose. They don't just choose everybody in the family. And that's why you have people in families that are angry and they do black magic to hurt other people that have the gift, because they know it wasn't given to them. But that's the reason why you didn't get it, because your ancestors knew you were going to use black magic, buddy. Like, what did you think? Like, you know? That's why they don't understand, and they're wondering why they're not getting the gift, because your ancestor knew your heart. They knew that you were not going to use it for good things, and they're not gonna like let you tarnish their reputation of the legacy that they built. Like, hello. Like, some people, they really don't get it. That's why they're not gifted with it. And that's why they, like, you have to understand there's a hierarchy to it. Whether we want to admit it or not, there is a hierarchy in spirituality as well. So what are people afraid to admit about you? Yeah, we have the Six of Cups. You're pure hearted. Six of Cups is pure energy, innocence. Okay, and these are like probably people in your family. That's why the Nine of Cups is here. They're envious of your gifts. What are people afraid to admit about you? What are people afraid to admit about you? Like, you're pure hearted. We also have Justice card here. Like, justice is upright. That means you're not going to do things behind the scenes that you know you're not supposed to do just because nobody's watching you. You have integrity. They know that, but they don't want to admit it. You're not like them. We have the Fool card again. Yeah, you walk to the beat of your own drums and you're highly protected. You always land on your feet. What are people afraid to admit about you? We have the Three of Wands. I'm telling you, you're a pioneer. They know that. They know you're chosen. They know that's something that they, even if they're afraid to say it with their mouth, they know in their heart. That's why they don't like you. What are people afraid to admit about you? I just seen the Five of Wands. Ooh, they're afraid to admit that you're competition. We have the Hermit card. Yeah, you're wise beyond your years, okay? Hermit is Virgo energy, and Virgo is the, like, you know, they're ruled by Mercury, right? So Mercury is the messenger of the gods. Like, what guy? Like, put some respect on Virgos, okay? What what are people afraid to admit about you? Wise on beyond your years, okay? Wow, we have the High Priestess again. I'm telling you, they know you're high ranking. Spiritually, they know that. They're afraid to admit that. They know your power. They can sense it. It's people close to you. These are not strangers, okay? And if you are like a tarot reader, it could be other tarot readers that are trying to, like the karmic ones. You know, there's good and bad in tarot, okay? So when with the High Priestess, it could be other ones that are trying to send magic towards you, and they're like, okay, well, what do you think you're doing? Like, clearly you're not that bright, okay? What are people afraid to admit about you? They're probably gonna come for me in the comments. What are people? Oh, we have the Tower. They underestimated you. They underestimated your power, and now they have to eat their words. Or they have to backtrack on those spells that they've been sending your way. Now they're afraid. Now they know you're protected. They shouldn't have thought about it before they did it. Okay. So that's all I have for you, my pal number 3. I hope this reading resonated. If it did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I hope to see you in my next video, pal number 3. Bye.